Hey everyone, Complex back with another video, and today I wanted to give you what our final thoughts on the Cataclysm. In case you don't know, the Cataclysm is coming up to a close. It is starting to wind down. If you want anything from the seasonal store, make sure you get in as soon as possible, because I do believe the start of next week is going to be the end of the Cataclysm, at least currently. And with this, though, has come the ending of the Cataclysm story. So today I wanted to give my thoughts on just the Cataclysm overall. We're going to break my thoughts down into just the event itself. We'll talk about the story and also the seasonal store. So let's just get started with, well, the Cataclysm event. I thought in the beginning the Cataclysm was a lot of fun. I liked that they tied the Cataclysm into a story and they gave you a lore-friendly reason to keep repeating the Cataclysm, so it didn't feel like a Stronghold or a free play event or anything like that, where you're just like literally repeating it over and over again, and that gets boring because you're like, there's no reason, blah, blah, blah. But I think they did a good job of kind of trying to make it a little bit more imaginative and giving you a reason to be there. The events were pretty fun at the start. I liked that the events themselves, with the timer and the score and everything, allowed me to want to be better than the last time I did it. Like, I wanted to be more efficient. I wanted to get better, do this, do that. And I like that. I'm one of those people that I like competing with myself. I didn't really ever try for the leaderboards too hard. Occasionally we went in for score, but otherwise I just went in for, well, crystals and just to be better than I was the last time. And I definitely think it excelled at that. And for people that like leaderboards, I mean, I know a lot of people have enjoyed ranking up on that leaderboard and trying to find all the tips and tricks and the most efficient ways to do that. And so I think the Cataclysm definitely excelled at that. However, there was one part of the Cataclysm where I felt like it needed some improvement, and hopefully going forward, if they do another Cataclysm event or something similar, this is something that kind of gets addressed, and that's the communication that was needed for a lot of the events, especially the later ones like Kelric, Astrid, Takaro, stuff like that, even Brittaheim to an extent. But one of the reasons I've always enjoyed BioWare multiplayers in the past, especially things like ME3 and MEA was because you didn't need to communicate. You could go in, as long as you knew what you were doing, with any set of randos and feel like a badass at the end, like your squad knew what they were doing, because you're like, yeah, like, you know, we got this done. We did a gold match, a platinum match, and it felt good. And that's, you didn't need to communicate. Everybody kind of knew either their job or they knew what needed to happen. So they were either killing mobs or completing events or what have you. And it always felt good for the most part. I mean, of course, there's going to occasionally be the story of like, I had like a really bad group or this and that. But, you know, for the most part, I thought they did that really well. And the Cataclysm, especially something like Kelric, failed at that, in my opinion. Kelric was probably the worst offender of the lot, where if you were trying to summon the Valkyrie, or if you were like going in and doing the right side to unlock that relic, and somebody else went in and was gonna do the left side, there are only 2 relics to start, so it made it kind of impossible. And I can't even imagine how much frustration there might have been for somebody that's a solo player hopping into this and having nobody to communicate with. Like, that to me just was a fail, and that's something that I do hope to see improved in the future. I mean, Strongholds and Anthem, they're definitely kind of more old school BioWare, in my opinion, where you really don't need any communication. You can hop in solo with randos, you can hop in with the squad, and it really doesn't matter. And I think more than anything, because the Cataclysm is based off of a timer and you have these puzzles where you have to have communication, I think that almost had like a disconnect there. Whereas if you had these difficult puzzles but no timer, or you had just kind of like the old-fashioned, everybody knows their job, you don't need to communicate with other people too much puzzles with the time, you know what I mean? Like, either or, like, there was just almost too much stacked against a pure group of randos. And so that's something that I do hope to see improved down the road. Now, as far as the story goes for the Cataclysm, I enjoyed the story. I'm not going to lie. I thought the story with Harkin brought up a lot of interesting points. I think Harkin is very much an interesting bad guy, and he was almost forgettable in the base story, and then they kind of made him unforgettable if you will, with the Cataclysm now. And I enjoy that from a lore perspective. There are a lot of questions I now have, and also just questions I didn't know I should have, but now that I do. And I love that kind of storytelling. It allows us to have a lot of interesting conversations about the lore. And you guys know me, I'm a lore junkie. I love lore, and I feel like there was a lot of tidbits added in, and this was good, what I'm going to call interim storytelling. If you look at the original acts for Anthem, the Cataclysm was supposed to come out decently close to launch, so it would have fed in really nicely to what we learned at the end of the main story, and then kind of set us up for whatever else was going to come next story-wise. And because I don't know when the next bit of main storytelling is happening, I don't know if this is all going to matter in the end, and that to me is really disappointing. I love Anthem's story. I love the lore and the world building that they've done so far, and I like what Harkin did with the story. I like where it's headed, but because I don't know when I'm going to get the conclusion to this, I don't know if it matters. And for a lot of people, they're probably not going to either remember or care about some of these little details that we learned, and they're not going to piece the puzzles together the way that they might if this was a single player story, or if we got the next bit of story content a few weeks later, if that makes sense. So one of the examples I have of this is, if you paid attention to the main story at the end, by the way, spoilers quickly for anybody that is trying to avoid spoilers for anything, there are Anthem spoilers here. But at the end of the main story, we learned that the Urgoth are back. Now, the Urgoth were what General Tarsus defeated, and that's kind of where our story starts, and that's the history and the backstory of the Freelancers. The Urgoth are back, though, and that's what we learned at the end. And we know that they're in Stralheim. They're invading Stralheim and kind of working their way through into the Bastion. And for me, from what we've learned through not only what Harkin was mentioning, but the Valkyrie storytelling and just the Vara storytelling overall, it seems like Vara was trying to make almost an Eden or a safe place for the Dominion to go, because they're gonna be decimated, if not already decimated, by the Urgoth. And so I feel like the whole time this Cataclysm wasn't just Vara being evil to be evil. This was Vara doing something horrible in order to save potentially her people. And I love that. I love that kind of storytelling, because it gives the bad guy some kind of weight, some kind of reason for being who they are. And that to me is 10 out of 10. And you kind of see that almost presented by the way the Valkyries are like you will not destroy this paradise. Stuff like, you know, you've heard them refer to it as like an Eden, a paradise. And then every time you defeat a Valkyrie, they were like, how could you have defeated me? Where did we go wrong? This and that. Like, they genuinely sound like they were trying to help or save somebody, and I absolutely adore that. And I'm very much worried, though, that the next bit of story that we get is gonna take so long to happen that this build-up and this excitement within that kind of part of the story is gonna go to waste. So I'm keeping my fingers and toes crossed and remaining optimistic, but overall, I don't necessarily expect anything too much to come from Anthem story-wise anytime in the near future, but that was my thoughts on the story overall. And then lastly, I wanted to chat with you guys about the seasonal store. I, for one, really liked the seasonal store. Yes, there were UI improvements, like being able to batch make major crystals, or just having everything in the currency of minor crystals. Either way, that would have been a really good quality of life improvement. But I loved that I had weapons boxes to grind for. I loved that I had gear boxes to grind for. I liked having cosmetics that I could get my hands on without, with just through grinding in the game. That was awesome in my opinion. I liked that at least the first few weeks, the store rotated through and there was new stuff. Towards the end, they just repeated the store. So that way, if you were kind of coming in late, you still had a chance to earn some of the earlier cosmetics and boxes. But I definitely would have liked to have seen either a few more items added towards the end of the week or something like that, something a little bit newer or fresher, just so those of us that had played the Cataclysm since the beginning still had something outside of gear and weapons to grind for and to be able to get from the store. But y'all, those are just my overall thoughts on the Cataclysm. I guess to sum up, I definitely enjoyed the Cataclysm. I enjoyed the events for the most part. There are some changes and improvements I'd love to see if they decide to do something like this again. Namely, I'd love to see some of the events not be quite as communication heavy amongst teammates, so it's more rando / solo player friendly. Harkin's story was very interesting. I did like the Cataclysm story overall. I thought Harkin was a very charismatic and interesting bad guy, which hopefully will lead to some more interesting storytelling down the road. But some of the storytelling felt almost too little too late in some ways, just because it has been so long since we got story from Anthem, and I'm very much hoping that the ending and what we learned from the Cataclysm doesn't go to waste because it takes so long to get to the next story point. The seasonal store was fun. I love earnable, grindable cosmetics in game. I loved the weapons and gear boxes, and hope that that is something that keeps up with Anthem, because it definitely kept me engaged a lot more than I had previously anticipated. But y'all, what are your thoughts on the Cataclysm? Did you have fun? Did you get everything you wanted? Did you get that god roll for that Jara's Wrath? Let me know in the comments down below, or find me on Twitch. I do stream almost every day, and I stream Anthem 1 to 2 days a week, so I'd love to see you there sometime. But that is going to be it from me today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your night and or day, depending on where you are in the world, and I will catch you next time. Bye, guys.